Yeah, that's pretty much. And then been working here ever since I came back in 2014. But yeah, is she recording? Oh no, I'm not very photogenic. So.
No. Everyone reacts that way at first, but we should have asked. Actually, it's okay.
What's up, guys? It's Ryan and Daniel coming to you from El Salvador. Jessica's holding the camera today because we didn't bring a tripod. Genius. Today we want to introduce you to Daniel. Daniel is born and raised here in El Salvador, has spent some time north in Virginia. He reached out to us after having seen us on YouTube, wanted to hang out, and we, as we do, we sprung an interview on him. And graciously, Daniel has agreed to sit down and talk to us. So we're going to bring you Daniel's story and Daniel's perspective of El Salvador and how it has changed over these past few years. Enjoy. How did you find the channel?
I don't remember, honestly. I just happened to stumble up on it because I was watching the Expat Mom channel, and then I guess because I just watched a couple of her videos, it just started.
Yeah,
you know, like the algorithm, just started recommending. I was like, oh, cool, check this out. Yeah. So I just, it was interesting to watch for me because, for me it was just, for me it's my home. It's this place I was born in. It was a place that I grew up in. But I guess I saw it from another perspective.
Right.
So
when exactly did you start seeing that people were coming to the country and people were making YouTube channels about the country? When did that start?
So, well, I guess it started a while ago, but for different reasons, mainly for like the fact that the country was just like an unsafe place, earthquakes, it was just like, it was all about unsafetyness mainly, like about, the unsafe areas in El Salvador where people would live under the threat of, gangs. And that was mainly the reason why YouTube videos were made, really, about the country at all. And most people didn't, because I remember talking to a roommate of mine, and I told him, in Virginia, I was like, I'm from El Salvador, and he said, where's that at? And I said, Central America, and then he said, where's that, Arkansas? I was like, not that Central America.
Right.
It's a tiny country, no one knows about, but it's from there.
Wow.
So, but yeah.
Yeah, we before our media started covering Bukele, we never thought about El Salvador. We would have been able to say it's Central America, but that would be the extent of our knowledge. And when the media started talking about El Salvador with Bukele, it was all negative. Our media was saying that Bukele is a dictator and that he's gambling the country's money away on Bitcoin, and what a terrible person and a terrible leader, and maybe the West should intervene and topple Bukele and all this stuff, right? And as soon as we saw those reports in our media, we knew that the opposite had to be true. Yeah. And so we started looking, and it turns out that rather than contracting freedoms like a dictator would, Bukele is expanding freedoms. Yeah,
exactly.
Both personal freedoms and economic freedoms. We found that the response to the gangs has been very harsh, like we were talking about earlier, and that's drawn a lot of criticism. It's sort of become a flashpoint for that criticism. But like we were saying, what about the rights of the people who were being oppressed by those gangs, right?
Sure, exactly.
And those are the rights that are being protected now, and secured. Yeah. So,
like from an outsider's perspective, from like countries that are used to having, the police being present and responsive, it's easier to say, Bukele's policies are strict and kind of radical, but from our reality, and seeing, what the gangs are capable of in ordinary citizens' lives, and witnessing these firsthand, because I would go to work and I would ask them, I would ask my coworkers, hey, how's it going? And they would say, oh, I'm just being extortioned by gangs. I'm living through this. I'm having certain threats, getting calls from random numbers I don't know about, but they know everything about me. So I mean, that is scary. That's just a scary.
That would be scary. Yeah.
Way to go about your day. So and now I would talk to these same coworkers who normally would live in unsafer areas. Public transportation wasn't safe, so it was just daily life was just people would carry 2 cell phones. One cell phone. This is in case I get robbed. I'll give this one, the cheaper one, and I'll give my expensive one here. So in case they ask me for one, I would just give my cheaper one. So it was just like a different reality.
Yeah.
Now when I talk to these people, they are like, it's just much safer. I can walk down the street at night, and me personally, I can, I sometimes I have to give a ride to some of my friends, and it's just safer. You don't see.
You just feel more at ease.
You just feel safer overall.
So, like, one of the concerns that we've heard raised, and certainly it's one that I understand and would share, is that will these harsh measures that include like wire surveillance and listening in on phone calls and monitoring text messages and whatnot, and the suspension of certain due process upon suspicion of affiliation with gangs and whatnot. There's nothing more permanent than a government program, and so some people are concerned that even after the gangs have been dealt with and there's no further concern or worry about the gangs, and people are at ease with that, that these measures will retain their force in law, such that ordinary citizens, perhaps opposition or critics of the government, might find themselves targets of those measures. What do you think of that? Is that a concern to you? Or?
Well, not really, because I think what Kelly is doing is like, he sees a garden, right? This is just a metaphor I'm using. He sees a garden, he sees, there's grass, good grass, and there's also bad grass, like weeds, wheatgrass, right? And he's stripping it out, he's stripping it out, and at first it looks messy, because, when you strip out weeds, you kind of strip out a little bit of the good grass as well, there's some war, there's going to be victims, unfortunately.
Right.
But in the end, when that good grass starts growing, and, at least for me, that's the way I metaphorically like to see it, it'll be good grass. So you guys are actually really early, on the stage. Like, I like the metaphor you used in one of your videos about talking about the Mayflower. Like when the Europeans migrated to the West, and I thought, what, he could actually be right about, because as far as safety and economic freedom, I actually was perhaps one of the very few people that was into crypto before I came here, because of one of my friends at work. He used to talk about it all the time, so he was the only loony who was talking about crypto at the time, and and I was like, I got interested, and I was like, okay, tell me more about it, what is it? And then months later, all of a sudden it was announced here that it was going to be the first country, and we were like blown away, like, wow, out of all countries in the world, this is going to be the first country. It makes it really easy, like to invest and whatnot and get involved in world currency in general. So talking about implementing safety, freedoms at the same time, I think it goes hand in hand. Because you can have one without the other in the end. You either have all of it or you can have none of it. You know what I mean? The only unfortunate thing has been, I guess, the education of people towards cryptocurrency, because a lot of people don't know about it. Implementation has been set behind, but I think slowly but surely we're getting there. It might take months. There is a learning curve. A pretty large learning curve, but eventually we'll get there. Eventually, I think we'll get there. It was more like programs like the one you were mentioning are implemented.
Bitcoin,
Bitcoin. I think that's a great idea, because it gets the population involved in it.
Like there is a learning curve to Bitcoin, because it's not just about understanding Bitcoin. A prerequisite for that is understanding the history of money more broadly, and it's just not something that's taught either here or, well, maybe now here, but in the past not here, and certainly not today in Canada or USA or Europe or anywhere. There is a certain, one might even suspect, intentional ignorance built around money and the history of money. So it's a bit of a leap. You ask a population that is previously 70% unbanked to go from that to... Muchas gracias.
Gracias.
a population that is 70% unbanked, to go from that state to leapfrogging the banking world altogether,
Exactly.
right into decentralized
Currency,
permissionless,
yeah.
trustless currency. It's a remarkable,
Big leap,
remarkable leap, yeah. And it's only been a year, so I think how much can you expect?
Exactly.
And if we take that into consideration, I certainly feel, I think Jessica agrees, that the adoption here has been spectacular.
Yeah,
in one
absolutely.
year. Like,
It was and is a great idea. It was a fantastic idea. The timing could have been probably better because it was like right at the peak of the bull run, and then it just.
Yeah.
I guess next bull run, and I'm sure that next bull run, which will be around 2025 if history says anything, but 2025 should be the next bull run. People are gonna look back to 2022 and be like, you know what? It was only 17,000 at the time.
I know.
Now it's like, I don't know, 125, $200,000, and it's gonna be like.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be a huge I guess wake up call for a lot of people, and I just hope that we can at least tackle part of that learning curve before, I guess, the next bull run.
Yes.
Because if you ask any ordinary citizen, most people would just, if they know anything about Bitcoin, they're gonna just say, "Oh, it goes up and down."
Yeah.
That's all they say. It goes up and down, and that's the extent of what most people know about Bitcoin. But of course, it's much deeper than that.
Of course. Yeah.
So, in my case, I learned the hard way. But it was a lesson. It was an education that I thought was well worth it.
Right.
And if the population in general can receive that education, but in a more lenient way, then that would definitely be leaps ahead in the actual adoption of it, by the general population.
Well, to understand Bitcoin, you have to first understand fiat, and in much of the world, people think that fiat is a car.
Exactly.
And so I think we're well along our way here in El Salvador with understanding Bitcoin and adopting Bitcoin, and I don't know, we have no concerns. We've seen it firsthand, right? You've seen it firsthand.
I've seen it.
And so it's like one of our friends, John Dennehy, who is the founder of Me Primer Bitcoin.
Okay.
He's in New York City right now, and he tweeted today that he's having to use cash everywhere he goes because there's no Bitcoin in New York City. And he has that contrast and compare between El Salvador and New York. And when you have that perception, that direct comparison, you can see that El Salvador is light years ahead of the rest of the world in terms of monetary technology and economic freedom. And John is in New York right now experiencing that directly. So a lot of criticism out there. I wonder if it's badly motivated, but here we are. It's a beautiful country, beautiful beaches. There's people surfing just over there. And we'll be paying with Bitcoin today to pay for our breakfast.
Yeah, we will.
So Daniel, thank you for taking the time to meet us today. It's always a pleasure when one of our subscribers reaches out and wants to say hello. We kind of sprung this interview on you. We have a habit of doing that, so you've been a good sport. Thank you. Before we go, do you have any thoughts for Salvadorans in the audience who might be watching, and any opinions or thoughts you want to share with them?
Absolutely. Well, thank you for taking the time. I wasn't expecting it, but it was very welcome. For Salvadorians living abroad, I've lived in the north. I've lived here, and honestly, in El Salvador, in my 30 years, and at least most of the 30 years I've lived here, it's seen huge leaps forward. As far as safetyness goes, I thought I would never see a change in my lifetime, but it's definitely been there's definitely been a change in at least a year's time. As far as economic progress, we're getting there. It's building. It's changing fast. I admire Jessica and Ryan because they are, they're very early on. They're actually very early, but early is key, right? Early is the name of the game. So thank you so much for your time.
Of course. All right. So that's going to do it, guys. If you like the content, head on down below, hit the subscribe button, leave a comment, hit that notification bell to never miss an upload. And yes, join us for the next one. Thank you again. Okay, goodbye.
Bye.